Well, I guess we better get going because we have a lot to cover. This is usually a 1-hour workshop. I got to do it in 50 minutes, so I got to start talking real fast. You guys got to move real fast. Okay, are we all on board? Okay, right, okay. There we go. No, seriously, we'll get it all in. But what we want to do is just look at the field of creativity. Universities all across the world are actually creating departments devoted to the study of creativity and the processes involved. And that's the surprising part for most people, that there are in fact processes involved. A lot of people think it's just a bolt out of the blue and they sit around waiting for it to hit. But in fact, there are methods, there are paths that you can take that will get you there. And by today, I'm going to give you a path to take that you can walk right out of here. In fact, you don't even have to wait to walk out of here. We're going to use it right here today. And somebody, one of you, is going to come up here and give us a speech that you wrote in your head today during this workshop. All right?
All right.
Great. Okay. Well, I call it the great sandbox, creativity. It's where we get to play. It's where we get to fall down and not hurt ourselves, get back up and start over again. And by the way, Toastmasters is a pretty good place for that, and I'll talk more about that later. So let's talk about some of these processes and where they come from. Yep. Now, Adobe, you know the software company, they do Photoshop. Photoshop has become a verb. And Reader, we all see it. They did a study, a global study, to find out what people's attitudes toward creativity were. Because they're all about creativity. That's what their whole software suite is. And here are some of the more significant things that they found out. They found out that 8 in 10 people feel that unlocking creativity is critical to economic growth. It's not just something to be nice. It's actually critical in our world today. Only 1 in 4 people believe that they are living up to their own creative potential. In the workplace, 75% of respondents, that's 75%, said that they're under growing pressure to be productive rather than being creative, as if those two don't go hand in hand. Although there are some cases where it doesn't, and I'll talk about those. So, first of all, just let me ask, how many people in the room think you're creative? Excellent. How many you don't think you're creative? Yeah, well, you're wrong. You are creative, you just don't know it. We are the creative animal. That is our place in nature. That's where we fit in. We're actually physically a pretty poor specimen. We're weak. We don't run fast. We're not. I mean, we certainly aren't as large as many of the animals in our world. But we survive and we thrive because we are creative. So let's just cover, what do you think creative means? What is creativity?
What is creativity?
Yeah.
The ability to create.
The ability to create, okay, yeah.
To think outside the box.
To think outside the box.
Using your imagination.
Using imagination. Anything else?
Recognize the spark of creativity when it comes in.
Ooh, that's important, yes. Okay. The best definition that I've heard so far, it kind of covers everything, because all of you are correct, by the way. But the thing that covers the whole field is creativity is problem solving. Problem solving. That's what it is. If you've ever been in a traffic jam and you found an alternate route, you just got creative. You were very creative trying to get that door to stay open. You were problem solving out there. And that's what creativity is all about. But by the way, and anybody that comes in, you haven't gotten one of these handouts, please feel free to move about the room and get one. It's okay. And these should be written on, by the way. They are not heirlooms. They do write on them as we go. And finally, one of the most pervasive myths of creativity is that only a few people are really creative. It's not true. Everybody has some kind of creativity, but there's different kinds of creativity, and there's the rub. All right, the Michael Curtin model, he was one of the people that really started this whole field of the study of creativity. He divides creative people into two categories. Basically, there's the innovators, and they're the ones that get all the press. They get all the glory, right? Because they come up with the big, game-changing idea. They are focused on novelty. They approach from unexpected angles. They challenge assumptions. They are irreverent towards consensual views, which is why they're not very well liked by most people. They're very often. I'll tell you. Did any of you read the book about Steve Jobs that came out right after he passed away? Yeah. Well, one of the surprising things that I got out of that book is that I'm so glad I never met the man, and certainly that I never had dinner with him. He, in some ways, was a despicable human being to be around and to work with. But my gosh, what an innovator! And he wasn't even that technically proficient. He just was a great user. As a technical user, I want to do this. Go make it do that. And that was creativity in its purest form. He wasn't confused by the facts when everybody said you can't do that. Sure you can. Go do it. Paradigm breaking. Radical change. That is what they are after, and they are what we would call revolutionary. They turn the world on its side. Now, one of the problems with innovators is we hear about the ones that succeed. We don't hear about all the train wrecks, which is the majority. And that's one of the reasons why companies who are trying to watch the bottom line and answer to their shareholders and all of that tend to frown on creativity because they've seen the train wrecks. One of the famous stories about Mr. Watson, who ran IBM and really brought it to prominence. This was back in the 60s. He had a department leader who worked on a project. He spent millions of dollars, and it utterly failed. Completely failed. And he called this man into his office. And he said, well, I guess you know why I called you here, right? And the guy said, yeah, you got fired. He says, fire you? I just spent millions of dollars educating you. No, I'm not going to fire you. We're going to figure out what's wrong and get it right, which was the correct response. He just educated the guy. He's the guy that he can trust more than anybody now. So that's being able to accept mistakes. Most companies cannot do that. Most leaders cannot do that. And since we do talk about leadership in Toastmasters, that's something I want you to take real note of. Mistakes are important. And sometimes they lead to huge leaps forward. There's another type of creative person, and I think most of us fall into this category. And that is the adapters. They're the people, they are focused on detail, they're precise, reliable, predictable. They find new ways to improve traditional ways of working. And particularly this part here, predictable and reliable, that's why people like them. They're much more popular than the innovators. And I'll tell you, even though they are evolutionary rather than revolutionary, they are the people who make the world go round. They make everything work. And they make everything work better. They don't think outside the box. They build a better box. That's what they do. And if you don't think that's important, let me ask you this question. Would you rather fly across the Atlantic in a World War I biplane or in a Boeing 737 or 787 Dreamliner? Huh? Which would you rather do? Hey, same invention, but there's been a lot of adaptation over the years, and that's people incrementally improving the darn thing. And that's what they do. And I think that's where most of us are. We can take something and make it better, even if we aren't the huge revolutionary innovator. It's certainly where I am. So, if you understand who you are, which one of these, and you know, sometimes we're one, and sometimes we're the other, and that's okay too. But if you understand where you fall into this, then we can move creative thinking from the random, sitting around waiting for the bolt from the blue, to deliberate, because we understand how we work, and how our staffs work, and how the people we work with work. We can understand that most important thing, that is clarity. All right, now, we're about to go into the sandbox. So, what I would like you to do, I need 5 people to come up forward here. We don't have a lot of space, but we'll use this space here. 5 people, come on. We're going to do a little exercise in creativity here. Okay. Get into a rough circle here. As much as you can. There you go. All right. And what you're going to do is you're going to pass this bottle of water around. All right. But as you pass it around, here's what's going to happen. We're Toastmasters, okay? So we're going to talk about writing speeches or presentations or whatever you want to call them. And so what you're going to do as you pass this bottle around, the person who starts is going to start just coming out with ideas for a speech. Just come out with ideas. One after the other. Boom, 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 boom. Keep it going. Keep the flow going. You can repeat. It's all right. There's no limitations here. So we're going to pass the bottle around. When it gets back to you the second time, pass it to the next person. And then you start. And then you. All right? Have we got that clear?
So as many ideas
As many ideas about a speech. Doesn't have to be about the bottle or anything. Just whatever. All right? Just let your brain go. All right? Ready? And start passing and shouting out ideas.
So as I'm passing it, or just
Just as it goes around,
Okay.
you
Okay.
are
I
shouting
see.
out ideas.
Okay, I got it.
All right?
So this is water, and there's so many ways and things that
No,
you can.
just topics,
Okay,
topics,
you can. So water. Just water.
Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Drinking.
Pass it around. Pass.
Ways to
No. Okay. You're going to pass it around one after the other. Boom, 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 right? You're going to keep the ideas flowing. Second time it comes back to her, she will pass it to you, and then you start coming up with ideas. All right? Okay, good. Let's try one more time. Okay?
Take 2.
Ben, there you go.
H2O. Swimming, drinking,
Pass it.
washing.
Pass it.
Oh, swimming, drinking, washing.
There you go.
Pass cooling,
Pass it.
refreshing.
Pass it. Pass it.
Hair combing.
Okay, keep it going. Keep the ideas going. Keep.
be creative at work.
Go. No, not yet. Keep doing your ideas. All right. Wait a minute. Hold it. Here we go. Don't come up with ideas. Just pass the bottle around. All right. Okay. While you do that twice, and it comes around to her the second time, that's when you will start coming up with ideas. All right.
idea.
Okay. There you go. All right. Now, start with your ideas.
Ways to create a better environment at work. Be more creative.
Keep the ideas coming. Keep passing the bottle. Keep the ideas coming. See, it's hard to do 2 things at once, isn't it?
For each idea.
Creativity at home.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ways to improve your speech making by being creative. Fun table topics. Creative meetings.
Keep going.
Starting backwards in meetings. Being creative all over the place. Dress funny for your speeches.
Okay, now the next person starts. Just let your brain go.
Being a teacher,
Okay?
being
Keep going.
about your occupation, about the great outdoors, about bottling water.
Okay, now you start.
Pets, family, kids, classroom,
cars, sports, weather.
There you go.
Oh, my favorite pet, my favorite food. How I like to play.
Okay, and now you start.
This bottle of water was drank by Jesus Christ
Okay.
2,000 years ago.
Okay, just come up with ideas, not a speech, just ideas.
Speech
And now
ideas.
it's going to be drank by
Just ideas, just
The
topics,
next-
speech
the
titles,
next,
speech titles, speech titles. Okay, good, all right. That's enough, great, thank you. Oh, okay, everybody sit down. Now, this isn't easy. This is not easy, what they did. Because what I'm asking them to do is to not filter what's going into their head and to just let it come out. We don't do that. In fact, people who do that usually get arrested. Or are asked to leave the room. But we don't have that unfiltered flow. Some of you who may have seen me do other workshops, one of the things that I like to pull out is the old theater game of yes and, yes but. And you try to get people to plan something, but they start each sentence with yes but, and they can't do it. In fact, they end up getting in fights by the time they're done. Whereas as soon as they switch over to yes and, you get planning going like crazy. And that's just, it's something that we do to ourselves every day, all day long. We do yes but, yeah, but. And the yes and is what frees your brain up and lets you have a flow of ideas. More on this later, but this was a great example. Some people were a little better at it than others, and that's normal. But the whole idea is to have that free flow of ideas is very difficult because our world just doesn't let us do that. All right. So now, how do we get a process in place to deal with this and to create this flow of ideas? And then, by the way, what do you do with the ideas once you've got them? Right? Here we go. There you go. Now, this is very basic. I mean, there's whole college courses on this, but this will get you going to today. There's divergent and convergent thinking. Divergent is you're finding different approaches. You're deferring judgment and you're suspending evaluation. I know in Toastmasters we're supposed to evaluate, but when you're being creative, as an evaluator, that's great. But when you're trying to create, it's harmful. You want to just put your ideas down. Let them flow. You want to go for quantity because having more choices is much more powerful than having one choice. Much more powerful. Would you agree with that? Yes. Yeah, having choices. One of the problems that defectors from the Soviet Union had back in the 60s and the 50s, when they would come here, they would freak out because they'd walk into a market and there were so many choices. And they were paralyzed by it. They were absolutely paralyzed by it.
I can attest to this. I came from the Soviet Union.
There you go. Did that happen to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the best example is the movie Moscow on Hudson.
Yes, absolutely.
Williams.
Yes, you're right.
That is the...
Yeah, excellent. Yes, I had forgotten about that. But it's a very powerful thing that we take for granted here. And because we take it for granted, we rob ourselves of it. No, it's one of the greatest things on the planet is having choices. And you want to make connections between these ideas, not just out there by themselves. If you've ever done a brainstorming session, a good one, and that very rarely happens, but if you've ever done a meeting with a brainstorming session where people are just building off of the last idea that came out, it's amazing how quickly you get to very creative, very unusual solutions. It's amazing how that works. And you want to seek novelty. Don't think of the same old thing. Go ahead, push the limits, do the impossible, think the impossible. This was impossible. Jobs was told that. It is impossible. Well, no, it wasn't, it turned out. Okay? So, here's an example of this. This man is holding a block of wood. If he lets it go, what's going to happen? It will fall. Anything else? Okay. Well, the answer is, it depends on where he is.
That's right.
Because if he's on land, yes, it will drop. If he's in the ocean, it will float, it will rise. And if he's in outer space, it will just sit there. It will go nowhere. This is a little test, and I have to give credit where credit's due. This is actually from the Department of Electrical Engineering at the University of Udine, Italy. They came up with this. And it's just a quick example how we always settle for the obvious. We always settle for the obvious. And I want to get you out of that. That's what divergent thinking is about. That's what seeking novelty is all about. Reject the obvious. Go somewhere else. Wherever. Doesn't matter where. All right. Now, I want you to pair off and write this down. If you have a piece of paper, great. By the way, anyone that came in and didn't get the handout, that's a piece of paper that you can use right up here. Pair off, and I want you in 2 minutes, I'm going to time this now, in 2 minutes, I want the two of you to come up with as many speech topics, not a speech, but as many speech topics as you possibly can. All right? Are you ready?
Yes.
Do you have your pairs? Great. It looks like we actually have an even number of people. Sure. Absolutely. Go, yeah.
We want to both write the same stuff.
That's fine. If you come up with the same, yes, write them all down. Why rob yourself of the other guys I have?
How do we change?
Wedding night. Favorite class, favorite child, favorite
30 seconds.
Cars.
About reaching out to kids.
All right, 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, wrap it up. How many topics did the two of you come up with?
Maybe 40.
40.
Wow. These two were cranky.
I should have come to you last. Anybody do anywhere close to that?
23.
23. How, 22? 42. How many of you came up with more than 10?
Everyone.
Yeah, okay, in 2 minutes. Now, what's the hardest thing usually when, okay, I've got to do that, speech from the entertaining, sitting there staring at the blank screen going, what am I going to talk about? Yeah, I do too. I do too. What's so hard about coming up with something to talk about? I mean, come on, 40 plus?
All of them good for 5 to 7 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
That was because under pressure. I think we feel better under pressure. If you would give us 5 minutes instead of 2, we probably wouldn't get as many.
That's possible. That's absolutely possible.
5
Yes.
minutes, I'd give more.
Well,
If we have some requirements, we have to meet and we just base our understanding on that particular set of guidelines that we have to fit in. That box.
And that's the prison that you're in, right? Or that we're all in. That we're all in, right?
Collaboration is always.
Yeah, there you go. That's what made this really pop, is you had somebody to bounce the ideas off of. How many of you talk to yourselves? Good. Excellent. All right. You know you're not crazy if you talk to yourself.
Define crazy.
Well, you're not even crazy if you answer yourself. No. You know you're crazy when you talk to yourself, answer yourself, and then say, huh? That's crazy, all right?
Innovative or adaptive crazy.
So, can't you have this conversation with yourself?
Yes.
Because you're having a conversation with yourself all the time. It just usually starts with yes, but. That's the conversation you're usually having. And why would you hold yourself down? There's plenty of people out there to do that for you. Why would you waste your energy on that? So, okay, so have you all got pretty much all your manuals mapped out now?
I think.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. So now we have this whole bunch of ideas. And we found that through divergent thinking, just bouncing things off of another person. But you can bounce things off the wall all by yourself. But we need to now converge. And that's where we start the evaluation process. We want to pick the best stuff. So we evaluate the ideas found in the divergent thinking. We avoid critical thinking. We tend to, when we evaluate things, we tend to ask the question, what's wrong with it? When we should be asking, what's right with it? And you take that kernel of what's right, and you start building on it from the other ideas. What's right with this idea? Suddenly you have a whole bunch of things that are right, rather than a whole bunch of things that are wrong. You want to promote affirmative thinking. What's right with it? That's what you want to do. Again, the yes and, the yes and. What's right with every idea? That's how you make progress. That's how you get creative. Creativity. It's allowing yourself to make mistakes. Art is knowing which ones to keep. And I can tell you, as a theater director, some of the very best stuff I came up with were mistakes in rehearsal. But I could recognize them as, no, that's the one. That's the one we want to keep. And, I got battles on that from time to time. But in comedies, it was always the stuff that got the biggest laugh. Always the stuff that got the biggest laugh. So now, we're going to do, we did a divergent exercise, now we're going to do a convergent exercise. Your pairs again. Now, I want you to discuss this. You can do this in a minute, I think. Come up with the 3 best topics, each of you. So each of you has your favorite 3.
Among the
All right?
ones we chose.
Amongst the ones you chose. You're going to evaluate. Okay, ready?
Together?
Are we going to do this together?
Together, sure. But bounce the ideas off of each other. Go ahead, go.
It handles all these things that people, evolution will go with the technology, engineering, digital details.
30 seconds.
How about fashion? Because, that's people. Or how about vacation and trips, because that's, the fashion can put a subset of people. So we're trying to converge. So among this, we
10, 9, 8,
it can be
seven, six, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you're done.
Especially with the.
All right, do each of you have 3 favorite topics now?
Yes.
All right?
Oh, you want to choose?
Okay,
Medical innovation.
give me your 3 favorite topics.
Mine is,
Yes, yes, right.
Okay, we have 3 people. I like to talk about pets, about education, and about inspiring others.
Okay,
And
I have political issues, medical issues, and disability.
okay.
Bill. He was
Mine
our-
was political, sex, and religion.
There are a lot of people in Toastmasters who think that those are taboo subjects.
Are they?
What else is there to talk about?
Juicy.
There's no such thing as a taboo subject, all right? Let's get that straight right now. Unless something that harms people, I would be against that. I would be against that. Promoting the harm of other people. That's probably the only one that I would object to. But I'll come back to you. What were your 3?
my 3 is creativity on the go, Toastmasters, how to sell a product, and effective communication.
Are these good topics? I mean, everything that we heard back there, everything here. I heard somebody in a group I did a couple of weeks ago, they came up with nose hair. And so I had them do a table topics for me on nose hair. It was wonderful. It was great. So, don't nose hair. Yeah. So, don't limit yourself. Would anybody like the table topics, their favorite subject? Real quickly.
Yes.
Go.
Nutrition.
First of all, what is your topic?
Nutrition.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, nutrition.
When do you eat breakfast? How many times a day do you eat? What do you eat throughout the day? What's your favorite meal? How much liquids do you drink?
Okay, so we have an outline starting to form here already. She's already mapping it out. That's great. Now keep thinking about these topics because one of you is going to get up here and give us a speech on it. All right? Okay, so pick a good one. Okay, now, just to give you an idea about how this works in real life at work, because, look, I'm talking about putting a speech together here, but I'm using that as my device. This works in your home life, and it certainly works in your work life. And if you have any intention on being a leader, you need to understand this stuff. You really do, to be successful. Okay, here's a conventional meeting at the office. Here's what generally works. You suggest an idea. Okay. And then we evaluate the idea. And then what usually happens is we reject the idea. All right? That's what usually happens. Okay, great. What sometimes happens, rarely, is, okay, we'll accept the idea. And then we'll implement the idea. How deep did we get here? Not real deep, huh? We took the obvious, probably, what was the obvious answer, and we say, okay, we'll run with it. And this is how the conventional meeting works. I've been in 100 meetings like this. Really, truly. All right, here's what a good brainstorming meeting runs like. We suggest ideas. Ideas, not idea. We record the ideas. We write them down. We stop when we have enough, and how much is enough?
Never enough.
Yeah, who knows?
It's only limited by the time you set aside.
Exactly, right. And then you converge, which is what you just did. Now, does this get us a little deeper into the topic?
yes.
Probably. We probably get a lot deeper into the topic. I'll give you an example, an actual case here. Pacific, they were called, I think, Pacific Light and Power, or Power and Light, when this happened. They're up in the northwest area. And they had a problem. Ice forms on power lines after spring and autumn storms. You've seen that on the news. And the only way they could deal with it is linemen have to climb up the poles and break it off. This is very labor intensive, time consuming, and incredibly dangerous. So the linemen really wanted to find a different way to do this. This was a problem, so this was the problem. Okay, so they decided to have a big brainstorming meeting, and they took people from all sorts of different departments in the company, not just linemen. And they worked on it for about an hour, and then they took a break. Well, during the break, the moderator heard one of the linemen talking to another lineman, and he was telling a story about when he was up a pole and a bear started coming up the pole. Right? It was a very funny story. So when they reconvened the meeting, the moderator had this guy tell the bear story because he thought it was fun and it would get everybody in the sort of a fun mood. Here's what happened. Suddenly, ideas began coming out, off the wall, just to be smart alecky, train the bear to climb the poles. Well, they thought, okay, you can't really go out and get every bear in the forest and train it to climb poles, plus how do we get it to do it when we want it to? So they said, okay, put a honey pot on top of the poles, right? Then the bear will go up there all by himself. Well, okay, that's not very practical though, because now you still got to climb the pole and put a honey pot up there. So one person said, well, that's no problem. We got helicopters. Use a helicopter and it can put a honey pot on top of the pole. Well, they all laughed about that, great. But then one woman in the group remembered she used to work in a MASH unit in the military, out in the field. And she remembered those helicopters coming in to the MASH base. And that downdraft, that pounding downdraft that happens when a helicopter comes in. And she suggested, wait a minute, use the helicopter, but have it knock the ice off with the downdraft from the blades. Guess what they ended up doing for the next several years until they came up with a better solution? They used her idea of using the helicopters. And it was very, very effective. And it all started with this, because people's minds were open. And the moderator, the leader of the group, did a spectacular job of guiding them into a good place. So they got creative, and they came to a solution that nobody had ever thought of. It's a fabulous example of how divergent and convergent thinking work. All right.
You know what they do today?
I don't.
Is there power?
Actually, I don't.
We put it underground.
Well, that's right there. Of course, an earthquake land. But
Still freezes.
yeah, that's true. So we have now. We see that the sandbox, that great sandbox that I'm talking about, it's not a place, it's a state of mind. And it's a state of mind created by environment and nurtured by discipline. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Bob Hope, comic actor, he did stand-up comedy routines for I don't know how many years? Decades and decades. So he needed a pretty creative process to do this. Here's what he did. He had a group of writers like all big comics do. And he called them the Double Cross and Circle Group. He called them that because here's how the process worked. They would all brainstorm. They would come up with hundreds of jokes. Hundreds. Just let the ideas flow. And they documented them all and then gave them to Hope in a list and a stack. And what he did is he would then go through them. If this joke made him laugh, he put a little X next to it. And he would go through the whole list. Put a little X next to all the jokes that made him laugh. Then he'd go through it again, only he would only read the ones that had an X next to them. If it made him laugh again, he put another X there, hence the double cross. That's where the name comes from. So he went through, all right, and did that. Then he went through it a third time, but only reading the ones that had the double cross. If it made him laugh the third time, he circled it. And that's the joke he used. Now, there's nothing complicated here. This is not it's not genius. It's real simple, but it's a perfect example of divergent thinking. That's what the writers are doing over here. They bring him the results of that divergent thinking, and then he does the converging, going through and marking them, and settling on the ones that he's going to use. This is not difficult. Okay. I'm going to mention Toastmasters because that's where we're at, and because we do happen to be in an organization that allows just by its very structure, allows us to do this. And if you're not using Toastmasters to practice this art, you're wasting your time in Toastmasters, truly. Or at least you're missing out on one of the most important features of it. Because we have an environment that is safe. You can fail in Toastmasters, nobody cares. It's all right. You have support from your club members. You have feedback. It's called an evaluation. Now, yes, there isn't always a great evaluation, I know, but you can ask around and you can get a lot of feedback. Get your own. If you didn't get a great evaluation, fine. Seek the feedback. There's discipline. You meet every so often. You have manuals you have to go through, most of which we have now today. And you can, it is set in a time frame for you. And you have opportunities to lead and use these creative processes, not just with yourself now, but start applying them to the people that you're working with. If you can master all these things and put them into your work life, put them into your home life, you will have a successful life and a very creative one. I call Toastmasters the ultimate sandbox, because you can fall down and you won't get hurt. Someone's always there to catch you. So I'm going to show you now how everybody is creative. If you don't believe this, if you don't believe what I said, watch this.
He would go up, open the first gate. He'd hold the gate and say, "Woman, get up. I'm pulling open, you open up." She goes up to the top, she pulls the second one out. And then he pulls it open, he waits for her to get down, and they escape together.
The escape was no fluke. Considering their small size, honey badgers have remarkably big brains.
The intelligence is just beyond anything.
Whatever Brian did to keep him in, Stoffel was hell-bent on getting out. In the end, and at great expense, Brian had no choice but to build his own Badger Alcatraz.
I said, "Stoffel, the days of your escape are over, buddy. That night they called me, "Brian, Stoffel's out." I said, "It's impossible." But we had trees in here. And he climbed up the trees and then they leaned over onto the wall. He was out. So we cut all the branches out of the trees in here and left the trees in the middle. Then he dug up the rocks and he'd roll them with his back feet to the wall until he piled them up high enough. And then so we took all the rocks away. This was like a game for Stoffel. Every time I devised some plan, it was like a game for him to work out how can he get over this. 1 o'clock in the morning, my wife wakes up, Brian, someone's in the house. She said, "I heard a window break." So we freeze. Oh my, expecting burglars. And yes, Stoffel at my bedroom door trying to get to the bedroom door. He made himself a mud ball and he fits it to make it bigger. And he rolled it and he stands up and he just got up like that. people have said, oh, did you train? I said, train it? Not at all. Didn't even think of it. He outwitted us each time with his schemes. And I remember one day Keith left the rake in Stoffels enclosure. He scratched himself right on his side there, he's thinking. Computer's working. Take the rake, put it back, put it against the wall. Climb out, off you go. Stoffel! I mean, you won't believe these stories. You think it's a hoax? It's not a hoax. That is Stoffel.
All right. Now, is he a problem solver?
Yeah.
Can we call him creative?
Oh, yeah.
So when we walk out of here today, will you at least admit that you're at least as creative as a honey badger, okay? All right? So get that idea out of your head. Oh, I'm not creative. Creativity is not a gift. Creativity, it's a skill. It's a skill to be developed. He just happens to have developed it very highly. So when you walk out of here today, go forth and be creative. Let yourself, don't get in your own way. That's the most important thing. And before you leave, please fill out this training evaluation form and have a good rest of the afternoon.